This conversation was sponsored by Komodo, a zero-knowledge, peer-to-peer atomic swap exchange. Learn more at komodoplatform.com.
I started figuring out technologies to deal with that walled garden problem. And at the time, I was working in a platform called OpenSim, which is an open source version of Second Life. You use the same viewer to access OpenSim as you do Second Life, but when you're logged in to OpenSim, even though you can talk to anybody on any other OpenSim grid, you can't talk to people in Second Life because Linden Lab refused to join what we call the hypergrid. They have kept Second Life a closed grid with the walled garden model. And so I wanted to talk to friends in Second Life without having to use Skype or TeamSpeak. So I created this device called the Grid Phone. And it's essentially a virtual smartphone. It lets you talk as one avatar with a heads-up display to others in other virtual reality platforms. And developing that, I saw there's commercial potential. A lot of people credit the fax machine with helping to destroy the Soviet Union because it enabled dissidents to send out what they called samizdat newsletters across the Soviet Union of what was really going on and sending that info to the West so that reporters could see what was really going on and not just the government propaganda machine. And so I figured the grid phone could do the same in the metaverse. And then we brought back into play our Galactic blockchain, and so we've been merging the two technologies so that you can take back control of your identity. You can register all your different accounts and different platforms with an identity you create on the blockchain. And then you have your Galactic cryptocurrency that you'll be able to trade for game money, for fiat, for other crypto. And then we have the 3D content smart contract licenses so that creators can register their content on the blockchain. They'll be able to sell it through our 3D content store on many platforms, so they have a bigger market. With a bigger market, they can charge a lower price whilst having stronger protection of their content through the smart contract than they would with the digital rights management that's in most of these platforms.
Can you explain that a little bit? Elaborate on that conflict a little bit more?
Well,
or that
digital rights management in a lot of platforms is pretty basic. Like in Second Life, if you create content and you want to sell it or give it away, you can have three choices for permissions you can give the next owner. You can allow them to copy it, you can allow them to modify it, and you can allow them to transfer it to others. And that's pretty limited. That's not really a full-fledged license like we see with the GPL license and MIT licenses or copyleft, etc., which are have a lot more detail to them, a lot more different use cases where you can do certain things commercially in one way but not in another. And so we wanted to create smart contracts that are more like real-life software user licenses, so that it becomes essentially a private copyright system. So we don't rely on government to enforce copyright. The blockchain does. So if let's say you create a virtual sports car and you're selling it through our content store, and somebody in a game sees your car that someone bought, and they use what's called GL Intercept or some other app to rip that content. And then they may try to upload it to the Galactic blockchain and claim it as their own. Well, in the registration process to upload their hashes to the blockchain, you're going to have heuristics that are going to look at, for instance, the mesh pattern of the 3D model. It'll look at the byte count and other patterns in the textures used. It'll look at the byte count of the scripts that provide the functionality. And there's other heuristics we can create that look for these sort of patterns, these fingerprints. And it'll say, this car matches this contract in this block. Do you want to pay them a royalty or decline this upload? And so that way, if someone tries to rip and upload it, they're automatically getting brought back into paying the real creator for the right to use that. And it'll automatically either limit their ability to copy and distribute that, or if they do distribute it, that will include royalties going back to the original creator. So it's like any sort of smart contract, it's a self-regulating, self-enforcing system where you don't need, the government to use thugs to enforce some law, because the smart contract is enforcing itself.
Right. So we have some standards for verifying the property rights claims, like the
Right.
origination of the material within the people that run the sort of the software nodes
Right.
of this blockchain, right? And have some software for that. That's very cool. It's sort of like Ethereum's processing of the smart contracts that people sort of, in
Right.
their computers they run that, right?
Yeah, and so we're not as fully fleshed out as Ethereum, where because we don't want people to create any sort of smart contract. We are creating limited. You can have different sorts of licenses based on recognized types of software licenses. You can. And we're going to be adding more features like dispute resolution and so forth over time to provide community governance. But the smart contract for the 3D content is really the first thing that we'll be providing as a service, because it's really the most important for these worlds where basically a lot of the disputes come over, content creators' property getting stolen, people being accused wrongly of stealing content that may just be similar. And so by having this system built in there, it can eliminate a lot of that drama.
That's a fascinating kind of political and property rights area to explore, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that being developed. I think it's really cool the way that you guys are implementing it. Is there going to be, is it like a parallel processing of the sort of data that people are uploading, or is there going to be kind of like a proprietary sort of site that's doing it? How are you guys organizing that, sort of the vetting of the uploads and stuff like that?
The wallet is your passport. It's also your means of uploading and registering content. And the grid phone itself provides the access to the 3D content store that will then you can shop and have content delivered to any avatar account on any platform that we can provide the service to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So. Okay. And how just like we don't have to go into too much detail, but who is doing the vetting of the uploaded content? Like where is that processing happening?
It's the software itself is
locally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on.
So it'll scan for different patterns, and it'll compare in the blockchain for existing patterns that are already registered.
Ah, interesting. Right. So it just won't register anything that looks enough like it.
Right.
Thing. Nice. That's awesome. Wow. Okay. So what's keeping game developers, game gods, from simply booting you off their games?
Well, a lot of the platforms allow user-created content, and so as long as a platform allows that, we can the grid phone is user-created content. We can go in there and distribute the grid phone as just like any other user, and they can't. As long as we're using the standard functionality provided by their platform under their own terms of service, if they were to block us from using that, they'd be violating their own terms of service, and that would be actionable.
And they'd be also blocking a particular API call and other sort of
right.
functions.
So for them to really block everyone in their platform from using a grid phone, they would have to turn off that script functionality for everyone, and that would reduce the value of their platform to their whole user base. Not just to us individually.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the most brilliant aspect of the whole thing. It's like a network marketing, almost like a Sybil attack.
Yeah, because we're giving out the grid phone itself for free, and when you have a grid phone, you can give a free copy to everyone else on any other platform, and so. And it's because it's ad supported. If you want to get rid of the ads, you buy a subscription, and there's all kinds of monetization models we have for it. But we want everybody to be able to use the basic freemium model for free to be able to communicate, because that's really our mission, is to tear down those walled garden models. And so with that ability to give out copies, then it becomes a viral sort of transmission of the content throughout a whole user base, and it'll spread faster than they can really block it. And they would have to try to claim that our service was somehow griefing their network. And it's like, well, no, all of our communications are HTTP calls that are outside your network. They're going using our network that's just interfacing with the users at their viewer. And so they would have to turn off that functionality in the user viewer, make the system not usable for the viewers, and that's really harming them more than it harms us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's delicious in a sense. From a strategy perspective, it's great. It's fantastic. So what happens if they sue you? If you, as a company, and there is a corporate structure that you guys have, and then people that are publicly working here.
Yeah, we're a C corp in Delaware. We are organizing as a to issue a SEC compliant ICO. We're fully compliant with all regs and laws and so forth. So we're not just some fly by night bunch. And if these companies try to litigate against us for having our own, contractual relations with their users, then that becomes something where we can say, we're in the right here. You're violating your own terms of service, not just against us, but against every one of your users. And that becomes a class action of their entire user base against them, not against us. And at the same time, we can say, this is the time where the courts will need to say that a virtual reality is more like real life than like a bulletin board, and that would bring Marsh versus Alabama back into force as a legal basis for creating an open metaverse and tearing down that walled garden model. So that's what we're doing. That's our main project at Galactic System, is using this grid phone and Galactic coin technology to challenge the existing business models, to disrupt them, and to create an open metaverse. Because as VR and augmented reality and mixed reality become a bigger part of our lives, we're going to spend more time there. It's a lot more important to have these sort of legal issues settled so that more and more of who we are doesn't become captured by the corporations. So we're not customers, as users, we're really products by this sort of capture that they've done of our identities. And so by what we're doing with the grid phone and Galactic coin is allowing you to take back control of your identity. You're no longer a product that they can sell to advertisers and so on and so forth. You're a user that they are responsible for, and they are responsible to. And so we're able to use these technologies to create an open metaverse. And that's really our idea, is that we can achieve a vast social good while still being a profitable company innovating with these technologies.
That's going to be a fascinating battle to see, and you guys are prepared to end up in a court case. In fact, this is sort of
investors don't like to hear that part of your business plan is to go to court, because court cases cost a whole lot of money and take a whole lot of years. But we expect that one or two different platforms may try to challenge it, and that may be a court battle we'd be dealing with. But there's going to be so many different platforms out there that will be making more money uniting these networks together through network effects, building the value of our company, that will way more than overcompensate for whatever the costs of whatever litigation we wind up. And every company winds up in various types of litigation for various reasons, because particularly if they're disruptive, because obviously people who have an existing property or money interest are not going to be happy that what their existing means of doing business is being disrupted. So it's something that's inevitable, but we shouldn't treated as something where it's an inevitable battle that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But our goal is to really, if they're smart, they won't make it a legal battle, because really, from our analysis, every one of these platforms can become more valuable by being part of the grid phone network than they can by remaining in the walled garden business model.
Yeah. So what is the business model of Galactic Coin and grid phone, and what's in it for these game walled gardens and for the game gods to collaborate with the Galactic
So
Coin?
I talked about the freemium model for the grid phone, and you can get rid of the ads with a subscription. The media screen on the grid phone has, and you can access our servers to shop at our app store. Developers can create apps to sell on our app store or give them away, in-app purchases, the whole smartphone business model. And then our 3D content store, and so we get a commission on 3D content. So that's our monetization. The blockchain, the Galactic Coin blockchain, which is derived from Peercoin, so as proof of stake, we've also implemented what we call proof of participation. So we don't want the mining to be dominated by huge data centers in China. We want, so for you to be able to mine Galactic Coin, you have to be logged into one of the platforms we're providing service to. And so, just like mining gold in World of Warcraft, you can mine Galactic Coin in Second Life or OpenSim, or when we go into High Fidelity and Unity 3D with your avatar. And then we can encourage the platform owners and we'll say to them, you can become a supernode to channel what's going on with your users using our service. And so you get a chunk of those earnings for enabling your users to relay data on what land they're mining on, who owns it, so the landowner in the virtual environment can get a chunk of that if they want to. And as a supernode owner, they'll be earning money from the whole Galactic Coin ecosystem. And so that will encourage them to be open participants in what we're doing, and therefore disincentivizes the whole maintaining the whole walled garden model.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think that's a very interesting deal, and they're gonna have some great indoor conversations about how to deal with Galactic Coin as it moves forward.
Yeah, there are some platforms out there that are talking about doing blockchains already. I know Philip Rosedale of High Fidelity has been developing a blockchain concept for High Fidelity. There's debates between him and some people in OpenSim over what's the scalability, the capacity of blockchain to handle the number of different asset calls that are typical in virtual worlds and virtual realities from asset servers. And so there's arguments that it can't scale, it can scale, it depends on what algorithm you're using and so forth. So these are debates that are currently going on within the community, and it's a healthy debate because it's encouraging people to look at some of the more innovative ideas in the whole blockchain space, because everybody in blockchain, of course, is dealing with scaling issues. Mm-hmm. So so VR is no different from that. And so it's going to encourage more innovation. And if we can get to a point where all of the different platforms create their own native blockchains for their own inherent asset systems, then we can treat those as side chains to Galactic Coin, so that then they can interact with each other, and that will really open up the metaverse from an economic perspective.
Fascinating. How are you going to deal with the token, the crypto economics of it? Do you have one token, two tokens? How does that work?
The Galactic Coin has a single utility token called the Galactic Coin, and so that's essentially the monetary unit of the blockchain. And so that's very simple in that respect. With our ICO, we're going to be doing a crowd sale of Galactic Coins that have less than 1% that are going to be pre-mined. But on the other side, we're doing an ERC20 equity token on the Ethereum blockchain for people who are accredited investors in the U.S. or others outside the country to actually invest in equity in Galactic systems, because I've tended to be critical of the whole crowdfunding movement. I know it's very popular with millennials. People believe in this sharing society thing, but it's like, if I'm really gonna, if you're gonna share your capital with me, I should share my equity with you. That's a fair trade to me. I find it weird that you see a lot of these crowdfunding campaigns where you have companies that are getting people to donate money to create products that are profit making for the company. It's like, if you're going to give me money so I can earn a profit, so I can buy a Lambo or whatever, I want you to have a piece of the action. That's, to me, ethical. If I want charity, I should be operating as a nonprofit. So it's very weird. Maybe it's just because I'm an old guy, but if you're going to use a sharing economy claim, it's like, yeah, sure, share your capital with me, I'll share my equity with you. That's a fair trade, and I think that's really where things should be going in crowdfunding in general. And that's another big issue with SEC rules and like the Jobs Act that limit the amount that you can raise through crowdfunding if you're offering equity in your company, and that's obviously impacts ICOs in how much you can raise if you're going to do an equity token without falling under SEC Regulation D. So there's all kinds of regulatory snarls that you've got to deal with in that, and so we've been weeding our way through that, and so we chose to do a completely SEC compliant equity token for part of the ICO, and then the other part is the crowd sale of the utility tokens.
Cool. Any rough ETAs on development and
Well, the core code of GridPhone is developed. It's in testing in Second Life and OpenSim. We're getting ready to do the beta release, and the Galactic coin blockchain is developed. We're implementing smart contract capabilities into it right now. And then once those are both complete, we'll be merging those into the marketplace. And that will then become, we'll be doing limited beta of the GridPhone. And then once we start doing this merging of the technologies, then we'll be releasing the full system to the public. And so we're going to be launching the ICO this month. And once that's complete, we'll be releasing the beta, and we'll be then expanding from Second Life and OpenSim out into High Fidelity and Unity 3D and Unreal and other engines and platforms that any place where we can put either user-created content or third-party mods and plugins, we're going to have GridPhones there. And then once we've entered all those platforms, then we're going to deal with the games and other platforms that don't allow any sort of outside content, and then we're going to deal with those guys and say, listen, you guys can join the open metaverse, or we're just going to inject our stuff anyways. And and they may not like that, but people that know me know that I've been involved in liberty activism for quite a long time, and I'll find all kinds of ways to get the liberty message out to people. And just like it was a crime to give a cell phone to someone in the Soviet Union in the 80s, they may make it a crime for me to give a grid phone to somebody inside their game, but that's not going to stop me from doing it.
Right on. Well, it's very exciting. I think it's one of the more fascinating projects that I've heard of, and for the record, and I'm one of the kind of early investors in the equity side of things. I have a very small position, and when I interview people, people know me because I interview people that are doing things that I think are cool and have good potential. So I'm excited for that journey. I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to being, having some role in that, whatever that is.
And so by having sensors all along that, those are all addressable IP objects in the Internet of Things.
We humans, and we mortal humans in the Dash community are basically helping the gears that move it, that we can fall away and this thing will continue.
If you can't have a civil discussion, then there is no such thing as society or civilization.